And I'm Juana Guzman, your moderator. And thank you again for taking time to join us in this remarkable night that we are going to engage with 6 incredible Latin American artists. But before I begin, I'd like to thank Dr. Pamela Quiroz and her team from the Center of Mexican American and Latino Studies for making this wonderful Salon CMALS de Cultura possible. And also to the Joseph Werlin Fund for financing this wonderful day and evening for us. And so as I shared with you today, I am hoping that we are able to share with a little bit of insights about the lives of these wonderful women. Often when we look at the artwork, we don't really know the stories behind the artists that are creating this work. And I can tell you one time when I was speaking with my friend Ron Chu from Wing Luke, he said, you know, I've gone to the Smithsonian, I've seen the Ming vases, but no one really talks about the village, the way the glazes were made, the people that have come together over the centuries and of creating these remarkable works of art. So I thought, you know, and I think maybe we should have an opportunity to listen to a few stories from these wonderful women who will talk about their journeys and their artistic experience and what it really meant to come to this country. And I know that when I was speaking with Dr. Pamela Quiroz, she said, I like to be able to have a discussion about them. And so here we are today. And so how we're going to begin this program is that I'm going to introduce each of the women. I'm going to read a little bit of their bio. They're going to come up here for about 5 minutes and show us their slides, and they'll tell their storyline. And then we're really going to get into the Q&A questions, you know, that I'm going to, present to them to create an engaging conversation among them. And I want to say thank you for being here. Let's give a wonderful applause to them. Thank you so much. So this evening is all about them, and thank you for your support for being here. And so what I wanted to say to you is that I feel that when we support artists, it is important to understand that they are families, they have their families, they work, they give so much back to their communities. But when I look at the work of these women, I'm thinking, what were they thinking? What were the processes in which they were engaging in creating this art? What are their struggles as artists? And it has always been my interest in the arts because I come from Chicago, so thank you for welcoming me to Houston. I feel like Houston is becoming a second home for me. Thank you, Dr. Quiroz, again. But I have really long roots in Houston, starting when I created the Houston Alive tours. I don't know if many of you remember, but about many years ago, I created a tours for the Houston, I think it was the Greater Houston Convention Tourism Bureau. Now it's Houston First. And it was the first time that tours actually took place. In fact, I was told that my tour that I created for them was one of the first that launched tours for the entire city. And so these tours combined going to the Latino community, the Asian community, and also to the African American community all at once. Believe it or not, this tour took people to 3 communities. And so my work has always engaged with artists and women and communities. I did one of the first Latina showcases of art in Chicago, which profiled Latina artists, because I felt that Latina artists and Latin American artists were not being profiled. They were really underrepresented, not only in Chicago, but across the country. And I was working with the Mexican Fine Arts Center Museum, which is now the National Museum of Mexican Art. And then I also was part of the co-founder of the National Association of Latino Arts and Culture, NALAC. I am the co-founder with Pedro Rodriguez. We created this to be able to address the inequities that were facing the Latino communities across the country. And we did that in 1989. And also I have done exhibitions like the Arte de Other Mexico with other wonderful curators that really brought artists from around the country. And of course, working at the National Museum of Mexican Art. And I'm also the co-founder of the Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz Festival, one of the first in the country. And that started in the 80s. And so of course, we have all these wonderful events around Sor Juana. But we did start that in Chicago. And of course now I'm in Houston, working with Dr. Quiroz, her team at the Center of Mexican American and Latino Studies on Latino cARTographies. All of you, I hope, have had a chance to see the digital board in the immersive experience. In fact, we're about to show another updated version of the immersive experience, Latino cARTographies, at the Houston Scottish Rite on April 1st, 2nd, 8th, and 9th. 2 showings each day, free with a reception. Please sign on. Bring your families. We would really love to see this. Anyways, without any delay, I'd like to present our first speaker, Tatiana Escallon. And let me tell you a little bit about her. An abstract artist born and raised in Bogota, Colombia, Escallon started her creative career as a designer and illustrator. It was years later when painting became her main language. In the year 2000, she took her biggest risk to change her life, and she immigrates to the U.S., specifically Houston, in search of a better horizon. In 2022, Tatiana participated in the XWTA Biennial Contemporary Textile Art in Colombia, and at the same time, her work was shown at Serrano Gallery and the Montesoroso Gallery in Houston. I hope I said that right. And for the summer of 2022, she exhibited her torero capotes capes in Mexico City at the Museum de Severo Perez. I present to you Tatiana Escallon.
No soy de acá, no soy de allá, soy de donde estoy. Con adobe en la piel y aire de la montaña, hoy calor y madera, aquí y allá, el amor y la estupidez significan la vida. Soy de donde mi mano toma un pincel, soy de donde un trazo me haga sentir. I'm not from here, I'm not from there, I am from where I am. With adobe on my skin, an air from the mountain, today heat and wood, here and there love and stupidity, meaning of life. I am from where my hand holds a brush, I am from where a stroke makes me feel. Thank you, Juana. Thank you, Pamela, and CMALS Salon for the invitation. Okay. This is one of my recent works. My abstract and recent works, they come from poems that I write, as the one that I just read to you. And the concept begins to materialize from a poem, and then it continues in the canvas. It's like an extension, just a different language, but the poem just passes into the canvas. I love the large format, and I love to leave the expression and the intuition flow in my work. Now, about my past, this is in my hometown in Colombia, lake near Bogota. I used to windsurf a lot, and I found this relation between sailing and art. Both are my passions because I feel free when I do both. It's like the world disappears when I'm doing sailing or when I'm painting. This is one of the works that I was doing. This is about 1995. That's a collage with paper, cardboard, and ink. This is like 220 when I came to the United States. As Juana said, I came in search for a better horizon, so I had to work as a designer. This was a sign company, and this is where I found a work visa. And this was my team, and that day we were ready to install all the signage at the MD Anderson. We used to make signs for the United Airlines, grocery stores, Ferrari, the police cars. I used to install even the decals on the police cars. Then I got the chance to quit that job and dedicate my life to my boys, twin boys, identicals, which I love. And at that time, I started searching for opportunities to show my work here in Houston. So this was at the Bayou City Art Festival, Art on Water competition in front of the City Hall, 2011. The piece was called Fountain of Happiness. This one, I love this picture. It's very personal. But it took me 17 years to have a studio in this country. So, but I still had the passion and wanted to do large paintings. So this was my bedroom about 2012. As you see, I had carpet, the bedroom, everything, but I still wanted to try the large format to explore. So not having a studio or a place to paint, it was not a problem. This was a mural that the city of Sugar Land, it's curated by the Art Museum, Texas. And this is my figurative work that I worked for years, and I use, let me read this. I have worked both figurative and abstract art. Figurative art allows me to represent what we see using the eyes, and the hands represents what we do. It also gives me the opportunity to play with human proportions and create unique atmospheres. This mural, here's a picture with me so you can see the proportions of the mural. It was a really cool experience, fun to do, my first large experience, and the process was very different than doing a painting, more like an illustration or design process and concept development. And this is one of my recent paintings, large format, 43 by 78. It comes from one of my poems. It's titled Happy Without You. I'm working this theme that it's called Woman's Voice. And I want to read this. My work today consists of an exploration of forms that transcend the interest in logical or coherent narration. My goal is to develop my own aesthetic instance while maintaining my authenticity. Beyond simply capturing an image, I seek to transmit something deeper and more significant that cannot be captured solely by the eyes. The experience of a cultural change has influenced my work unconsciously. With my artistic language, I seek to convey tenacity, determination, and strength, just as in my daily life. I seek to find my place in this country and in this city. Through my work, I want to express my personal search and determination to find my own path.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tatiana. And I have to tell you, Dr. Quiroz and I went to visit her studio, and I hope to be able to visit the rest of the studios of these remarkable women as I come back and forth to this wonderful city. And I have to tell you, her work is just remarkable in that she works in this wonderful space, and what she's doing in the back part with the storage containers, and it just goes on and on. Of course, that's the creative spirit that all of us have, and these wonderful women have, so multifaceted and multi-tier in what they do. So now I'd like to present Lorena Fernandez. And Lorena Fernandez has used her art to manage her emotional self since she was a child. She was born in Venezuela, started in the United States and in Switzerland, and worked in Singapore for 7 years, and currently has her art studio and life in Houston, Texas. The artworks of Lorena are exhibited and collected international. Lorena, please join us.
Thank you, everyone. This picture right here is from the year 2008, when I was doing a presentation and offering a workshop about healing expressive arts for personal development and for psychological freedom. In our life we have so many constraints, but in art there's no constraints. So this is really what gives me a lot of passion, and it's the reason why I'm involved in art at all. So this is very recent. In the last few years, the last 5 years, I was living in Amsterdam, and this is my studio there. And I was collaborating with a dance group that was doing also therapeutic use of art. And there was an exhibition and workshop that went on for 5 days, and I was working on large installations for the workshops. And it was about birth, childhood, adolescence or puberty, maturity, as many of us are here, and also old age and death. It was quite beautiful and interesting to consider the whole spectrum of life and to have all the participants dance and create art about that. This is back before I moved to the United States, outside my high school, with my best friends. This is La Salle de Mérida in the Andes Mountains. And there was no art education there, but I was always making art, regardless of whether there was any encouragement for it or value for it. I was very lucky to figure out early on that I require art for my survival and for my sanity. So, and it's very lucky also for the people around me that I am involved in this. So I actually went to Texas A&M University, and I studied industrial engineering. But I was making art at that time. So my painting has always kind of followed my trajectory, my emotional trajectory in my life. And I've had many times when I have been a foreigner or when I have been kind of a mute because I have to learn a new language. So it's been quite difficult, and the art has supported me and allowed me to express myself, even if I don't know the language. And maybe I don't have words to express, my other things, in my own language. Maybe there's no words for what I'm feeling, but I always have the art to do that, and I encourage other people also to try that because it's really fun and cool. This is when I lived in Singapore for 7 years. I went there to work as an engineer, and this is the first time when I didn't have many Latin American friends, so I made my own. So all my paintings from that time are, flamencas or, mariachi women, So, yeah, I accompany my own self like that. Then I returned back here to Houston, and I was engaged in making these type of paintings, which are more about the connection with the universe and, transcendence, we are stardust, and I love that, dust to dust, and stardust and life, these type of topics. So I have several of these kind of transcendental or type of paintings. In Amsterdam, I told you, it was this workshop for several days, and this one was, the workshop was in a beautiful Dutch church, and this was childhood, from that workshop. And so at birth is the first time that we figure out that we can experience pain and that we have a body and that we need a caretaker and all these things that can generate quite a bit of love and fear, So art has always accompanied me, like this amazing best friend or this parallel process that accompanies my life. And it's really something that, I have a passion for helping people to figure this out and to give themselves permission to paint and to write poetry and to dance, because it's important and it's not for other people. It's like a spiritual practice for humans. We have a right to it. So I hope that the message comes across. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lorena. Again, you can hear the stories really behind the artwork, as I was trying to share with you. It's more than just what you see on the wall. In fact, some of these pieces are by the women that are sitting here before you. So, take a look at that and maybe make a purchase, because again, that is always very important for artists to be able to continue doing their work. Now, let me introduce the next wonderful speaker, and that is Lorena Morales. Lorena Morales is a multidisciplinary visual artist currently based in Houston, Texas. Born in Maracaibo, Venezuela. Did I say that right? Good, thank you. Morales holds certificates in painting and sculpture from the Glasso School of Art at the Museum and of Fine Arts at Houston, as well as a degree in business administration. I told you they were all multifaceted women here. And she accompanied the Block 19 program at the Glassell School of Art and was also awarded a grant by the Carlos Cruz Diaz Foundation. Congratulations. And the Glassell School of Art for participation in advanced seminar in contemporary art. I give you Lorena Morales. Let's give her a warm greeting.
Okay. Okay, thank you to Juana Guzman, Dr. Pamela Quiroz, Marisela Martinez, and the Institute of Hispanic Culture for making this event possible, and to you all for being here tonight. My name is Lorena Morales. I was born and raised in Maracaibo, Venezuela. I am the oldest of 4 siblings. My father was a civil engineer, and my mother is a visual artist as well, who owned an art gallery for many years back in Maracaibo. In the picture, that beautiful lady in the black and white picture is my mother in her gallery there. I grew up surrounded by art with the great opportunity to meet with artists and take art classes with some of them. However, at that time, art was just a hobby for me. I got a college degree in business administration and worked in real estate for many years. It was in 2003 when I moved away from Venezuela with my husband and my 2 children that my art practice became grounded. I got certificates in both painting and sculpture at the Glassell School of Art. My work is influenced by the houses painted in bright colors and the contrast between light and shadows created by the sunlight that is a characteristic of Maracaibo. Like those. I create these paintings while studying at Glassell. Inner Loop, as you can see, is a representation of downtown Houston. The title, Inner Loop, refers to the loops around the city and the different perceptions that come from the fact that someone lives or works inside or outside those loops. Years later, I made a series of immersive installations inspired by the same concept. Temporary assignment, the one next to it. I did it in 2008. As part of a series of work titled Migratory Stories, showing different animals and landscapes in different planes, talking about a search to belong to a new culture. In 2009, I started doing experiments using acrylic paint on plexiglass as a way to cast shadows and reflect light. I always focus on my interest to explore the relationship between light and shadow, color and space, memories and emotions. I moved from acrylic paint to spray paint on plexiglass, so there are some. The ones on the top are acrylic paints, the ones on the bottom are spray paint on plexiglass, because the spray paint on plexiglass allow me to get more transparency and project the colors. In this slide, I am presenting pictures of view of some of my individual exhibitions between 2011 and 2019. By that time, my interest was heading toward a minimalist approach using industrial materials. So you can see that it was kind of more with rods and more focus on color. Then it came, we moved again and we moved to Africa. We have the wonderful opportunity to move to a small town named Soyo, located next to the Congo River, north of Angola. There I have the opportunity to explore more in depth the beauty of the process of drawing while assimilating a new culture. I create these drawings, especially the ones on the top, on the horizontal ones, with the materials I was able to fit in my suitcase, and were inspired by the current and colors of the Congo River. My recent series, Topographies of a Place to Know, were developed from that experience. Back in Houston in 2020, while in confinement, I created a couple of large format works, translating the line drawings into six-pack rims. One of those works is still here, that was shown in 2021 during Wistan exhibition at the Holocaust Museum, Houston. Then, in 2022, I created a series of drawing sculptures. They have the form of a house, which has been a constant in almost of my works and in my research of topics related to the concept of home. Then became the series Shelter, a wall-hanging dimensional version of the drawing sculpture. That is, the example is the one I have on that wall. In my new series, Once Upon a Home, the sizes of the houses are smaller, and with the application of vintage paper on the background. They vary in color, in patterns, in wallpaper designs, and this variety correlates with particular histories, different cultural contexts, and memories of home. In conclusion, my research is focused in the concept of belonging and well-being in relation to home. I am not interested as much in the concept of home as a physical space. I am interested also in exploring spaces that are intangible, metaphoric, and psychological. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I want you to consider just for a moment here what you're experiencing today. When you go into a gallery and you look at a work of art, you say, wow, I like that. But here's the storyline that people are sharing with you. This is a very special moment in time. And I do want to thank the women here for sharing their stories, because they're so deep and they're so rich. And I do want you, after our questions and you get to ask, is to really ask them questions, and then afterwards really get to maybe connect with them at another point, because this is what is so important, is to really hear it first voice from them. Now, I want to introduce our next speaker and presenter is Rosibel Ramirez. She is a Venezuelan American artist based in Houston, Texas. She moved to the United States in 1994. Rosibel obtained a scholarship at the Florida Museum School at Philbrook Museum of Art in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Ramirez graduated from the University of Tulsa with honors, with a degree in fine arts and sculpture and a minor in art history. She holds a certificate in digital photography from Cornell University. Today, she works in her studio in the greater Houston area. I introduce to you Rosibel. Rosibel?
Well, thank you very much, Juana. Again, Pamela, Marisela, the sponsors that we have today, for giving us, this opportunity. It's very good to get together all the artists, as American, Hispanic American artists in this city, that we've been working for so many years. In that picture, I'm doing some of my work in Oklahoma. I came to the United States, like Juana said, in 1994, and I came from Venezuela. I was born in Maracaibo, as well as Lorena. Let me put here. That's a beautiful picture of my hometown. I was born in Maracaibo and live in Cabimas. I grew up in Cabimas, and in a very artistic family. My grandfather and my mother both were artists, and when I got here, I brought all that experience that I had back home since early age. because I grew up, seeing painting all the time, and it was normal for me to create artwork since early childhood. So here is me, like, I don't know, maybe around 10 years old or less, I think, with some of my artwork, which it was, normal for me to create at that age. Also, my sisters are musicians, so it was like a nice environment, very, very artistic. So I had, artwork that I did even before I went to school to study art, which is, for me was very important because I think it's something very good to fulfill what you really want to do. Like actually went to school in Venezuela in business, which I never mentioned that before. And yeah, and when I moved here, I decided to go, to study fine arts. And so it was, like a whole new game, to start all over. But I was doing what I really was passionate about, something that I did, since my early childhood. So this one was back in Venezuela. That's El Tucán. This one is a watercolor painting. So I did a very realistic, artwork in Venezuela. And when I moved here, I started exploring, other medias, especially also, after I got, the scholarship at the museum, and I went back to school, to the University of Tulsa. And so I started exploring, other medias. And I've been working in a lot of different medias. This one here is welding. It's metal, and but it's always keeping, it doesn't matter really what media I work with. The most important thing is that I always have the same inspiration. That is, my inspiration is about my hometown, the fact of being an immigrant, family, a lot of things that are related, in that transition when you make a decision to move to another country. Let me show you here. This one is one recent, picture that actually it won a prize here in Houston. This is my new work, which I also have one in here. It's using, glass and photography, which is the media. Glass is the media that I'm using in the past 7-8 years. And now I'm combining, fusing photography and glass. So this one here is a picture of a photograph of Houston diffused with a glass artwork made by me. And then I get, both medias together. The same here is the image, in black and white that was done during the pandemic. And also reflecting, the use of glass and photography. So I can't wait, to have the conversation, which is more, appealing to me than being here at stand. But I really appreciate, all of you that came here today to hear our stories and share, our artwork. Thank you.
Sometimes it's very hard for artists to talk about themselves. I mean, they'll talk about the artwork, but themselves and what they go through, and hopefully the questions will even allow us to really get a little deeper understanding of what it really takes for them to be artists, especially as women, especially as immigrants. And as, and I'm just so grateful to be able to ask those questions. And I love this, how you showed us the transition of your work from when you came from your country to Houston. So that's what we're experiencing, we're seeing. And so now I'd like to introduce Rosalinda Toro. Is a Colombian-born U.S. citizen and Houstonian since 1999. She has been a professional, established artist for 36 years. Her inspiration comes primarily from her Caribbean roots and her love for Mother Nature. She started creating metal and clay sculptures, but her artistic vision and career path led her to stained glass mosaics and wood carvings and painting. Rose's talent for combining different medium results in beautiful works conceived with a collage of textures, colors, and balance and volume. Rose has created more than 200 projects, over 60 of these in the Houston metropolitan area. Quite remarkable. And I give you Rosalinda.
Thank you, Juana. Thank you so much.
No, oops.
Oh, it's on the other side. Okay. That's me. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all you do for our American artists, especially in the city of Houston. I'm Rosalinda Toro. They call me Rose Toro. And that's like my name that people know because my original name is Rosalinda Rincon from Colombia. But when you marry, you adopt your husband's last name. This is me back in '88. As I started as an artist after being a lawyer in my country, I studied law, and I was working for an international company named Bechtel that is housing Houston, by the way, and they built huge projects. So they were building the pipeline in Colombia from the Andes, crossing all the country, and I was housing Cartagena. So one day, after being in the procurement office for a couple of years, I was jogging. I was not like this. I was better. I saw a person coming out from a house, a friend, and I said, "Hi, how are you?" Da, da, da. And she goes, "Well, I'm so happy because I came here to do my artwork." And I say, "What, artwork here? What are you doing?" And she goes, "I do ceramics here Saturday mornings." So I said, "Oh my goodness, can I check?" So I came in and my coin just turned around. My life changed totally. I quit my job 2 weeks after. And then I have been a professional artist since then. And I've been very fortunate to create art, always searching for new things, always learning in private classes or in short classes that you can learn and then just develop as the experience comes in. This is me in the Astilleros, Magdalena, is where they build the ships in Barranquilla. From Barranquilla, Colombia, we have the river right there. So we have the Astilleros that build the boats. So I learned there the art of welding. So I started welding in '88. This is a beautiful sun that is here in the Sharpstown area, and is one of my first works of art in the city of Houston, even though when I came in, I will tell you during the questions about how I started and knocking the doors in the city. So I started creating, public art. In Colombia, I did a lot of semi-public art because in Colombia, the government didn't fund artwork. So my Medici was the Catholic Church. Reason why I started a lot with the stained glass. So I created big windows for churches, Barranquilla, Cartagena, Santa Marta, in Bogota. So I did a lot of stained glass back then. But even though I was working all the time with steel, I love steel, I love copper, I love metals, and I carve a lot. So that back then I did a little exhibition here and there, different galleries. And but when I moved to America, I was more serious and dedicated to my public and civic art. I create public art because I believe that public should be seen art should be seen by everyone and should be shared, and not only to be shared, but to be enriching our visual environment and enriching our communities. So I started doing public art in the city, and that was like nice that there is me working up high. I was commissioned to create the Veterans Memorial Park for the city of Houston with the city of Houston. The city of Houston houses some of my work as for the permanent art collection. And this is me in the Veterans Park after they stole my original sculptures in bronze and brass. So the city called me one morning, Rose, they stole it. So, okay, let's do something different. Let's do the same thing, but in concrete and mosaic and bronze, so nobody will steal it. Okay, so that was one of the ones that we did for that park. Let me show you. This is one of my recent works. It's in Austin, Texas, and this is a beautiful mosaic. I work my media as is a public art. I have to work with materials that withstand the weather. So rain, sun, and wind. And this is one of my latest works. I just finished it in November. Is the American flag, honoring our veterans. In this design, I mixed different wars. Every war has a different camouflage uniform. So I mix all the wars there. I mix equipment, different carriers from Vietnam to carriers from today. And it's a beautiful mosaic mixed media. The flag is in both sides, not only in the front, but on the back too. Let me show you really quick the next picture. I'm almost done. This is metal and copper. This is another of my recent works, 2020. It is a mix of stained glass, steel, concrete, and not only that, but working with the community, for the community, is one of my main things, because community takes ownership and pride in the work, and they love it when they see it then installed. And they go, oh my God, did I do that? Yes, community participated in this column with all these flowers in mosaic. I did myself with my helper. My husband is my right hand. And when he retired, I told him, hey, you're not going to bed, forget it. I'm working all the time. So we both weld and do things. And I've been fortunate to have my workshop at all times and to be commissioned all the time. So I don't have time to work to see if I do it or I sell it or whatever, because I'm always doing something either for the city or Spark Parks is a school park program that we house in schools, especially disadvantaged schools. So we come with the architect, landscape architect, artist, and then we just give to the community back what they deserve, to have an open space with art, to celebrate, to do, and enjoy with family and friends. So my main focus definitely is public art. This is a beautiful pocket park named the Butterfly Pocket Park with the city of Houston, and it's in the near north side area. And I have created over 70 projects around the city. Maybe in your neighborhood there's one of my work. We don't know, but there I am. And the good thing is for years to come. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose. That's something that really struck me when I first began to work on the project with Dr. Quiroz, who had this vision. I don't know if she ever sleeps, but it was after Latino Art Now, and she really felt that there needed to be a place where people could see the amazing artistic contributions of Latino artists in the city of Houston. And when I looked at it, I mean, it was so much public art. I mean, I come from a city with a lot of art, but Latino public art and that made a big difference. And that's one of the things that I'm so proud of working on that project with Pamela, is to have this digital board, Latino cARTographies, because that means that everybody can access it. They'll know the stories of every artist, of all the landmarks, and all the public works. So no one's safe from this digital board. If they're a creator, they're on this board. Anyways, let me introduce our last speaker before we begin our questions. It is my pleasure to introduce Yolanda Velazquez, is a Colombian-born artist whose work reflects scenes from her native country and her travels and adventures around the world. She captures the nature, magic, and beauty of each country and the women that nurture it. Initiated in fine arts at renowned Colombian artist David Mansour's Academy, Yolanda followed her training with studies in industrial design, drawing, and coloring techniques. She mixes textures and vibrant colors in her paintings to capture the beauty and motion of real-life scenes. Originally inspired by the pride of her Colombian culture, her style has evolved as a result of immersions. I am very delighted to introduce immersions throughout Asia, and and recently by the breathtaking natural scenes from Australia. Let's give a wonderful welcome to Yolanda.
Hello, everyone. It's not easy to be the last one, but try, and very honored to be with this great group of artists. Thank you, Dr. Quiroz, for the opportunity, Marisela, for all your help, and Juana, for all you do for the community. I know I've been there, and it's not easy to work like that, so I really appreciate the opportunity you gave us tonight. So I'm from Colombia. I was born near to Bogota, in a little town, Zipaquirá. My dad was a lawyer. It was a very traditional family. 3 siblings, 3 sisters. I was the oldest. And although here, this is my first picture, I look so cute and perfect. I was very rebellious. And I keep painting, like the piece over there. I did that like I was 12, and it's still in the house of one of my uncles in Colombia. So that piece is around maybe 47 years, the last one there, and the other. So I keep painting, messing up the carpets, and the best way to fix them, it was cutting the carpets. So my dad never found out about all the damage that I did. So always dream about art, designing clothes, painting. I managed to get into one of the good schools in Colombia. It was a great opportunity for me. But I was asked to get the traditional education. My dad was a lawyer. For him, having a career was very important. So I ended up industrial design, finished with a business career. I met my husband in business school. We married in 1985, had 2 kids. And in 2007, we had the opportunity to move to Houston. So coming to a new country, not learning, but practicing what you're supposed to know, English, was not easy. And making a successful family in a new environment took my whole time, reinventing ourselves, new careers. Spent 12 years in that. In 2007, we had the opportunity to have a new posting. My kids were already in university, so I was able to let them and pursue a dream that it was always elusive. So in 2007, we moved to Malaysia. I was able to get my study, had the opportunity to paint with local artists, and finally get my name recognized as a Latin American artist. My work was representing Colombia in several exhibitions. Through that, I qualified to exhibitions in Spain, Belgium, Monaco, France. So it was a new world, but I was so me in that part. That is my studio in Malaysia. You can see the green on the back. So it was always reflecting the nature. But Colombia was always there. And basically, like somebody said, you learn to appreciate your culture when you are away. So that was a great opportunity for me to feel the Colombian roots and feel proud of that. So that was my art in Malaysia. So I started with very realistic pieces. Then I moved to this kind of abstract, and the last one is like a flamenco dancer. So you can see the progression of the art coming into more, the abstraction and the impression of the images. In 2015, we moved to Australia, and this is my studio in Australia. And then I developed love for the nature. For Australians, it's very important. They have a really strong connection with the earth, with Mother Earth. And I learned to appreciate that. So my paintings moved to those landscapes and a lot of scenes from other countries and Australia. So that's me also in Australia. In 2018, we moved back to Houston. I try to combine my business with art, so I get involved in a lot of nonprofit organizations as a board of director member, president of the Institute of Hispanic Culture. I had been involved with the Latin American Women Arts Group as well, so a lot of my time is now involved in that sort of promoting the arts, the culture, helping others, so that's why I know the work that is involved. But I have been lucky to keep painting, working in pieces like this. This is a scene from Bagan, it's in Myanmar. So it's an abstraction of the temples and the sunset, the sunrise in Bagan. So it's not really something that you can see, but I know the temples are, so it's part of the development of the art from those trips. So now 2021, I have been moving into 22 to new style, new things. And I have learned that really it's not about me and the people that I want to please. It's about creating, about expressing myself, and being so lucky that I have been able to fulfill that dream. So I'm really happy to be here and share the stage with these ladies. So, and thank you to all for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's just remarkable, the traveling and the stories that we're going to learn some more. So let's begin by starting with the first question, which is, and either one of you can start, please share with us what it was like to leave your homeland. You've actually kind of hinted on that in your presentation. And to live in a different country, what were your reasons? And I'd like to try to start with Tatiana, right? I'm gonna start with that, I'm gonna pick on you. So Tatiana, and then I want everyone to jump in and tell me what was that like really, because I think, I made my career here, I've done really well, but could I actually do that in another country? And you have.
Okay, thank you. Well, when I left my country, at that moment, I am glad I didn't think about it too much, because it was a really crazy adventure what came after. And the reason that I left, it's really sad, and it was because I lost all the hope in my country. I got to that point where I was losing everything with my husband because the political situation. And I mean, we got nothing to lose if we were going to try something different. So I thought it was, the only way to save something was to take an extreme decision. And also I didn't wanted to have kids under that government at that moment. I also thought about that. So, but I wasn't thinking about all the adventures and all the difficulties that were going to come, because if I knew about it, I don't know if I were able to do it. So then we just came as tourists to this country. He didn't even speak English at that time. No jobs, no nothing. And here we faced that problems. But it's like God were on our sides. We both found work visas. I worked for the minimum wage, but that was enough for us to be for a while until he started paying. And I got a lot of difficulties, like also economic. We just came with $4,000, and on the first week we bought a car for $1,000, so there were $3,000 left. But we made it with that. And I am thankful that I wasn't able to think too much. I was living at my friend's house in a sofa. I had no plan what it was going to be, where we were going to be. It was just the moment and the day.
Thank you. This is sort of a kind of merging two questions about what it was like to leave your homeland. And my other question, what was the personal challenges you faced? And you're sharing that. I was wondering if anyone else could give us a little bit about their own experience about what it was like to leave their homeland and your families and all that. Does anybody want to jump in?
Well, for me, it was very sad. I cried for a whole year. It was challenging because I had my workshop, my things in my country, and I had to leave my churches and my priest and my things. But at the same time, it was a new challenge. I moved to America because I married my husband, and he's American citizen. And so for me, the challenge of coming to a big country, first we landed in New York City, and it was like intimidating, even though I had been in New York many times. But it was like, okay, now what do I do? You know, and that's when you have to trust yourself on what you do. You have to believe in your art. You have to believe in what you do. And then I just trusted that, and I started restoring churches, which is what I knew. Some in Perth Amboy, New Jersey. I had the opportunity to work with the architects from St. Patrick's Cathedral, in the Museum of Newark. They hired me to start working with the community. So the Greater Newark Conservancy was starting to do, so the path started open slowly and always with the community. So I love it. But when you leave your country, it's very sad. Even though you're happy here, you have new experiences, you can do this or you can do that. But it's your memories, your childhood, your friends, your things. And I just packed a big suitcase with my things. And I remember I brought I'm a fan of candles, so I brought my big candle like this. I still have it. And my personal Bible. And, so with hope, faith, and believing in yourself, that's what it counts, and that's what it is when you do art. And I always knew I was going to do art. So I just went from there.
Practice too.
Yes.
Lorena, can you share with us about, what that was like to leave your homeland?
Well, I came to United States when I was a teenager because actually my mother was a doctor in Venezuela, in Merida, my little town. She was a cardiologist, and she was a scientist. She was divorced, and she didn't have she was teaching at the university, but she felt that there wasn't enough in the country, in the city. So she had applied to different things around the world, and she got a grant from NASA to come and work in the NASA Space Lab in Dallas. Mm-hmm. So at that time she came, and she was a single mother, so she brought me, and I was 17. It was right after the picture I showed on my slideshow. And I was in a very good school in Venezuela. So I came, and she signed me up in a magnet program of school for science and engineering professions right away. She had a path for me. And I passed the tests, and then I picked all my classes that I wanted. I said, okay, I want Fortran, physics, calculus. Whoa. And then the counselor told me, you're setting yourself up for failure. And it was the first time in my life that I realized that somebody had such a low expectation for me, because I have broken English too. It's like, this girl can't even speak English, and she's gonna sign up for these classes. So anyway, I passed and did very well, and then I was accepted in Texas A&M. And I think that that's one of the things that is common to many people, is the fact that you are highly fluent in your native language, and then you go through this stage of being like a mute, and then people have a very low expectation of you, and for many people this is new and unusual, and I worried about the younger people because the environment shapes you and you shape the environment. So low expectations for Latin American kids, for example, coming here. It's a thing to worry about because I don't want them to accept this expectation, you know? I was lucky that I had so many examples in my country of every position of power and influence in Venezuela was occupied by a Latino person. So for me, it's like not weird that, you know, Latin Americans can be in power and they can lead and they can do everything. Of course, now the situation we all know is problematic, but there are many countries that are very successful in around the world where, you know, every position of power is occupied by people of their groups, whatever their groups are. So this is something very interesting. Also part of my goal, you know, in bringing up the self-esteem of people through art.
And I think I want to kind of talk a little more about that in our next question, because I think that's really important about these stereotypes, you know, that's not only with our people here, but for those who come from Latin America. Rosibel, what insights can you share with us?
About? Sure.
What would you like to share with us about
What I would like
what it
to
was
share.
like to come from leaving your homeland?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, whenever anybody move, in fact, you know, like you're also, you know, involved in psychology and you study that, and the fact of moving, you know, for anyone is one of the, actually is the three first places, you know, of traumatic things that can happen, you know, in the life of someone, you know, and so not just moving, but moving to another country is something different, you know, is a big deal. For me, it was, I came here, actually it was, well, in 1994, a long time ago. It was not because, you know, it was a problem at that point, you know, that we were aware, you know. It was actually for an opportunity. My husband had an opportunity to get into a program, in a PhD program, and it was given, he works at a university there, and they had this kind of programs that they can apply for. So we came doing that, you know, and so it was great, you know, the opportunity, but we came as students. So I was working at the time. I have to leave my work, and we had like a month to prepare everything, because they say, okay, you've been applying to that, now you can have it, but you can leave, you know, within a month. You have to be there. So I was pregnant. I was 5 months pregnant.
Wow.
And I had a 2-year-old kid. So we moved, you know, I left my work, you know, like right away I had to leave my work, my house, my family. We didn't know anyone in Oklahoma. And at that point, well, it was, what I realized today is that crises are, you know, something that can make you very sad, you know, this type of transitions. You can be very sad, you can be held back, you know, like even get depressed. But if someone knows how to manage, you know, that situation, kind of, you know, like get into what you really need to do. It's like a gap. I mean, I'm here and I want to be there. What do I have to do to get there and close that gap? And for me, it was also, okay, I things that I don't know. What do I need to learn, you know, also to get to know what I don't know, what I want to know, you know? So that was basically always my decisions in how to get, you know, over those situations, like being away so far, you know, from families. At that time, you know, we're not even, right now you say, okay, I can keep in touch, you know, with the family because of the phones that we have, you know, all the technology we have. At that time, we didn't have, I think Facebook was something kind of coming, but it wasn't even at that time, you know, something that everyone was using. And to make a phone call, it was very difficult, you know, because it was very expensive for a student to pay phone calls. So it was a whole new thing, you know, different. And so I moved, you know, to Oklahoma, stayed there 8 years. We moved also then to Florida. We moved, at the end, we moved here. So
And I want to ask you about that when you moved to Houston, and I want to go to Yolanda to also share about what it was like to leave your home.
It was a transition because we moved here for 1 year only. The first time we were offered a job, I said, no, I'm good here. I am not moving my kids to be discriminated or anything like that.
How many children do you have?
I had 2, but the little one was like a year, like a 6 months old when we got the opportunity. So I said, no. But things happen, even when you don't want it. So 5 years later, we were offered again, but for 1 year only. So it was good. For 1 year, I can go on vacation to be there. I can enjoy the summer, go to Disney. It's going to be fun. Ended up, things worked out. My kids were moving up. My husband was getting more opportunities. So we decided to stay. At that point, it came the realization. But I processed the thing, and I had been always thinking, you know, I was kind of spoiled in Colombia. I got everything I needed. Moving here made me stronger, made our family, it was the 4 of us against anything. My kids got tied, the family got tied, and until today, I feel blessed because we had that opportunity. So at the same time, you learned, you matured, and you learned that even the low points, and even if you are sad or things are not what you are expecting, we were together, and that made that better. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, when the political situation in Venezuela was taking a left shift, my husband and myself, we start talking about the possibility of moving to the United States. And we start kind of planning and waiting for the opportunity to come. So the opportunity came in 2003, and we decided, so then we were ready to come. By that time, my daughter was 3 years old, and my son was 12 years old. We arrived in December 2003, and then there were challenges because there were some happenings in between. Like in January, I was telling my husband, I am ready to go back to Venezuela because there were some things happening. But, and of course, something else that happened is that I was working back in Venezuela. I came here. I didn't speak English. So my kids went to school. My husband worked, and I was like, well, okay, getting crazy at home, what I will do. So, but I have a really smart husband. And he said, okay, if my wife is happy, I am happy. So he told me, okay, maybe this is your moment to pursue your passion for art. And he started doing some research, and he found about the Glassell School of Art. So we went together. He registered me because, of course, I didn't speak English. So at the end, I got more book certificate, and in addition, I learned English studying art.
Wonderful.
Yes, and but yes, and of course, by that time, 2003 also, I feel isolated. I didn't have the networking I have today. So I was difficult for me because, like, mostly I didn't know. Years after, I met Ariel, that was one of the teachers that speak Spanish. But at the beginning, I didn't know anyone else speaking Spanish at school. So I was like trying to belong, trying to find a way where what I will do now. So slowly I started looking for, I joined the Visual Arts Alliance in Houston that helped me a lot. because then joining them, of course, after I improved my English, and then by joining them, I start helping, because this is a nonprofit, helping. I, of course, improve my English, increase my networking, and also learn all the process of hanging shows, do curated works like shows, do a lot of things. I learn through there. So now, of course, still there are these challenges because, of course, still my English is in the improving area, but now I feel more welcoming because the Latino community has grown.
And I want to, that's really kind of segueing into our next question, because you're all kind of touching on that, so I want to kind of really expound on that, about your personal challenges that you faced when you first arrived in Houston as immigrants, as women, and as ours. I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, and so so you're all kind of leading to finally here in Houston, and I'm really interested about what was that. Now you're mentioning language, you're talking about connections and all that, but what was your experience arriving here in Houston as immigrants and as women, and by then you're already rooted as being artists. So I'd really like to maybe start with Yolanda about that. Here you are in Houston, and so.
Yeah, the thing, because language is something common, even when you think you speak English, it's not the same thing.
Has
When
that
you're
been-
here
has
with
that
the
been an
you
obstacle?
all, and no, you are totally behind. For me, after the language was the fact that you are always behind. No matter how hard you try to catch up with the costumes and the practices, with the sports, you are behind. You are learning about everything. And it's a process. It's really what it takes. And like you said, now as a Latino and a woman, you feel welcome. But you are always proving yourself. It's kind of labeling you like, I'm a professional, I have a master's, I have education. Even if I don't speak English that well, I can do a lot. And that is hard to deal with when you are new and you are trying to learn and trying to be successful and make your family happy and be in the way, find yourself happy. So for me, that catching up was really like everything. Football, baseball, everything was new. And you think now it's so easy, but I was asking stupid questions, like with my son playing football, how many quarters? And people look at me like, quarter, but I didn't even know. But I was there because, so everything is a challenge, food, everything. So that was hard for me.
Yes. Does anybody else want to kind of jump in about that feeling about the language barriers, the challenges, and maybe some of the negativity that you were facing because of it?
Yes.
Oh, Rosel.
Well, the language, is something that is always present, but being an artist is something that makes a huge difference, because you don't have to explain much, about art. I mean, it is explained by itself. And the other thing is that you can communicate with any language, anyone. It doesn't matter if it's English, Chinese, or Spanish, any language. So whatever we create, the important thing is to have the connection with the person that is seeing, the artwork, because it's more than learning how, the grammar or how to speak properly. It's more like to do the art that people can connect with, to put your feelings in a way that people can see it. Because, it's not just painting or creating, beautiful colors. It's to create something from your heart that you can really express through your art. And that, for me is almost in my unconsciously, that I do it. It's something that I not even think about. I just do it, and then I realize, okay, I did this because of that, or a situation.
When did it
So-
become automatic where you were able to make that adjustment eventually? Because I think imagine that for all of you with that language, because you were saying that about the language and all that, When did you feel that you finally made a transition with the language? Did that make a difference in opening doors for you? Did it make it easier with the language, or did you realize that it really was not really the barrier that you thought it was because you had your art?
Right.
Because you mentioned that actually.
Yeah, actually for me in Houston, I have really found a home because our family is quite international. My husband is Norwegian. My first daughter was born in Singapore. My second daughter was born here in the United States. I was born in Venezuela, so basically no one around our dinner table was born in the same continent. And I found Houston to be the home for this type of people. Yes. So I have felt very welcome in this international city, you know. The Scandinavian community, have acquired my works. I think Houston has so much diversity to offer, and also the open mind of people. Whether you want it or not, you're faced with people from other countries every day, and you just start to learn and to value and understand that people are different everywhere, and that at the same time people are very similar. This is one of the things my youngest daughter told me. I asked her, because she did her whole high school in the Netherlands, and I asked her, at first she wasn't happy to be there, and then after she was very happy to be there. So I asked her, so what did you learn? And she said that people are the same everywhere. And that was so beautiful, you know?
Yes.
I really love that.
Thank you. Tatiana, how about you?
Well,
You've been a little quiet.
yeah, okay. Like one of the biggest challenges I faced here was like being alone with no family and making friends. It was really, because from South America countries, you come with this tradition where families are the ones that you went to school with, the ones you went to university, or cousins, or those are your friends, like your forever friends. So I had to learn how to make friends as an adult again, and
It's hard.
but it was hard to find someone I could really like match as a friend. I live in a neighborhood near Katy like for 14 years, and yes, I was speaking with the neighbors or doing events, but they were not my friends. They weren't. Until then I moved near downtown, and I started meeting all these artists from South America and women, and they are my friends.
That's good. That's
That makes me glad that you have this camaraderie among this group, because sometimes it can be very isolating. But I do want to talk about, again, even, do you face or do you think that as women and as artists in this country, what are your professional challenges that you continue to face this day in terms of selling your work, presenting your work, you know, how you are presented as an artist, you know, and it's so competitive in the world of the arts, you know, and I'm just wondering how you feel you fit in that, and what have been those things that you have had to face, and how you've actually, what have you done to overcome it, and what do you continue to do to, you know, get your work out there. Lorena.
Well, it's challenging to be a woman this age, mostly. Like right now, I feel more challenging to be recognized now that I am over 50 than before, because now the art is more focused to support younger people, of course. And then we can, if at that time you don't have your career, right now will be more difficult for you to fit, to get into. In my case, I feel I have been kind of lucky, could be. I could say maybe, well, maybe not lucky, maybe perseverant. Because I always said I am the yes gear. So to every opportunity that present to me, I say yes.
Like me, yes.
That's a new one for me.
And then I figure it out. It's like that. Since day one, if I have an opportunity to show under a bridge, yes, I will be there. I will be there. And something that I was really focused because, like Yolanda said, we need to prove ourselves all the time. Is be really professional, like show on time, show quality of work, and be able to talk. Maybe your English is not perfect, but you need to talk. For me, like the opposite maybe way for Rosibel, for me, artist community is because I grew up with my mother having an art gallery. So I grew up with a community of artists. I grew up going to workshops and learning from artists. That time was a hobby for me, but that is something I brought with me. So when I came here and became an artist, I was expecting something similar that I didn't find. So for me, it was all the time at the beginning trying to belong to a group, like trying to get into a community. I feel welcome. Then to develop as an artist and to be proving all the time, like as an artist. So I get lost.
I just want to share.
Actually, I think that Rose was talking about community.
Yes. So,
Yes.
so for me, it's
Yes.
that is sharing and mostly sharing and get this. You get like you learn by sharing with other artists. I need that feedback. I need to talk with other artists about art. Because at the end, they are my community, they are my people. And now, of course, my people are more the Latin American artists, but also the local artists, that American artists are also my people.
And I'm so glad you brought that up about the connection between the Latin American artists and the Latino artists that are here and among the other artists in Houston. Rose, you've been so engaged with communities. How have you bridged that worlds between being a Latin American artist and working with the Latino community and really working in the city of Houston because you work citywide? How's that been for you professionally?
Well, first, when I moved to Houston, that was a challenge because I was coming from the East Coast, and fortunately, I had worked with communities over there, African American communities, a lot in the East Coast. So when I came here, I said, well, I want to work with the community. I want to continue what I've been doing. I called Houston Parks and Recreation, and I just said, hello, my name is Rose Toro, and I want to do art in the parks. And they were like, what? So they told me that I had to go through the Museum of Fine Arts Houston because they were the curators for the art in the parks. So I said, okay, no problem. I called the museum. Hello, with the same thing. I'm Rose Toro, and I just moved to Houston. And when you knock doors, they open to you. So they gave me the opportunity. They passed me to Beth Schneider, a wonderful woman, assistant director at that time. And then I talked to the educational outreach program with the community from the museum. So I talked to this lady, and it's funny because the people that work in the museums think they own the museum. So she was, I just have 15 minutes. And I said, no problem, I need 5, you know? So I went to my meeting with her. We ended up having lunch together. She called me the following week to have my first experience. And there I engaged a lot of community because we started creating murals and work with the museum for parks, for public parks. And the way they engage it is with the community. That's what I was looking for, and Hispanic community. I noticed there is no transportation for the kids when it comes to after-school programs or when it comes to make art during summer months. They stay at home in air conditioning, they cannot do anything. So I did a lot of work in the south part of Houston, Chimney Rock, and Airport Boulevard and other communities, very mixed between Latin American and African American, disadvantaged communities, that's how we call it, right? So I started working with them, and yes, community is very important to work with because the art is yours while you're creating it, but it's theirs when you leave it behind. It's like a private collector is sitting the work in their home, is their artwork, it's not yours anymore. So it's a little bit of leaving that behind, but one of the things that on your other question of continuing, what do we continue facing today, is that there are a little bit of circles, like you just mentioned, like Visual Arts Alliance or this other group. Visual Arts Alliance, I love it. I'm a part of it, but I never go to meetings, I never participate, never, but I get the emails and the updates on it, and that's good, and I support it. But there are other groups, kind of selective groups in the city that they're not open to Latin American art. I don't know if they are afraid of us.
I
Or
appreciate
maybe-
your honesty about that, because I was wondering about, sometimes we those of us, so that we struggle just to have a place in the mainstream art community, and sometimes we see people coming from the outside, because we all came from, our parents came from other countries, and I'm first generation, but often we are struggling so much to get into galleries and museums, and really that's one of the reasons we created Latino cARTographies, because we saw that isolation, and it really was an equitable, accessible way for people to really understand and lead people directly to the artist. But we saw that it was in fact very elitist, very restricted, and then they see you coming in, and Houston was proclaimed an important art city because of the Latin American visibility, and I was just wondering about that relationship between the Latinos that are here and Latin American artists, and those circles of connections
Yes,
and
circles.
disconnections.
Mhm.
Do you-
Disconnections,
Yeah,
mostly.
disconnections. Do you feel that?
I work, to support arts and education, and I think it's always the fine line between being labeled as a woman Latin artist that wants to use the label, or being actually recognizing an artist, a professional artist. You are always dealing with that because you want to take advantage of being Latin American, but you don't want to be used as a Latin American artist. So it's always that. It's like being Hispanic, but you need to, like I said, prove yourself or try harder than anybody else because you are Hispanic. So, and it's a process. I guess we are doing better. The city is doing better. Things like the cartography, that we are showing people that is Houston or even
And that is
America.
serious art.
And it's
That we're
serious,
not
and like
serious art.
no, and it's not new. We have been here. We have been a presence for years.
And you also come from such experiences of being in other countries, and so there's this unique importance of having that global connection as well that really forms you as well, because when you come from another country, you have that global connection. I told you we would not get through all our questions because of how dynamic, because I have to allow the audience to ask questions as well. And so I want to really thank you for answering questions. I have more, but because our time is running out, I want to open it up to the audience to really ask questions of these remarkable women. So who would like to ask the first question of them?
Hello.
Yes, you got the lucky number.
Yeah, speaking about public art, we always want to figure out, okay, how do we open doors? And if there is somebody like you here sharing your experience and your knowledge, and if you need help, if you need hands, how do you reach other people around, people like us here that we have the desire to work? How do you reach the people and get help to do what you do?
Okay, I am, I have my workers, I have my helpers. One way of doing public art is to engage the city, of course, through also the Houston Arts Alliance. They are the ones that manage funding from the city to do that. I usually have my workers and have permanent workers, but sometimes for installations, I subcontract. So, because of insurance purposes and all, so I just subcontract, I have my installers, I just call him, hey, Señor Adelo, I need to do this day, so that's how I approach help with subcontracting. So, and for all these years that I've been here, I already, have a team that does that. And especially my two helpers are my angels. They see me angry, hysterical, whatever, happy, they've been with me years now. And we have breaks between projects sometimes. But thank you. If you want to be part of my work, now a friend just called me that if the granddaughter can be come for her curriculum to work with an artist. And I said, okay, I've done it so many times for friends because their kids need to start building a curriculum. So she's going to come on a spring break. And it's funny, but the teachers from schools, they come to my workshop and verify the kid is working with me. Wow. It's funny, and I have to sign paperwork and all because sometimes they come and they're just in the phone, but I need to get going and I work and I'm, so they learn and that the art of mosaic, the art of welding, the art of creating public art is awesome. And it's time consuming and takes months to create a project.
Can I make a question?
Oh, please.
Okay. So I'm going to make it as brief as I can with my background. I apologize and I must admit that I am married to one of the panelists, but I do want to maybe question to all of the panelists. And it is simple. I want to follow up with your question. I think I yearned for what you said is people who want to join or be part of the process and are either artists or want to be artists or want to help somebody or want to be involved or simply love art. How do they really truly get involved and what help can you provide, because you are the standard of the true Latin American art in Houston, and are you going to be in Houston forever? Or not forever, but for a period of time? Are you committed to do something for the city? And are you really willing and able to provide some kind of instruction, guidance, or love for the people who really are inspired by you in some way or another? So I'd just like to ask you all, what do you think or what are your thoughts as to how you see yourselves helping?
Mentoring.
Mentoring and helping. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you. I think that's really a great value because sometimes the community doesn't know how to make that connection to these remarkable artists. And we have 180 artists on the digital board, from outsider art to insider art, right?
Yes.
And it's growing, and that's the most wonderful thing. But all the artists say it makes them feel that they're part of a family because sometimes they don't know each other. And then the community doesn't know that all these artists and places to go because it's so isolated. It's not in our schools. We're not connected. There's a huge disconnect because of the mainstream standards of what they believe art and who is allowed to be in that arena. And so when we discovered, or rather not discovered, but when we had an opportunity to meet so many wonderful artists, there was the common thing about how they felt that they didn't know how to connect with one another. And the community wanted to be able to connect with the artists organizations. But I think I'll ask these wonderful women to answer your question because they have been making some deep connections to the city. So Tatiana, why don't you answer that question? Anybody can answer that question.
I have found opportunities like knocking doors, like through Houston Art Alliance. The city of Houston has supported me a few years ago with a grant, and that happened just because I followed the opening and did my project. And today when I see other artists that okay, I am like open to share all that experience with other artists. Sometimes it's not like I have like a program or anything, but I have friends that they call me and they want to come to my studio and they spend like the morning with me or everything, and I let them like ask me all kinds of questions. If I have the answer, I share it, because I think when I was, well, I'm still trying to do things, but there were so many things that I wish before I had someone to guide me or to tell me like where to go or do this or look at this website or don't do that, or that it's a waste of time, or that it's a bad show, this won't take you anywhere. So it's not a problem, but I'm always open like to anyone. Like call me, come to my studio, have a coffee, and just we'll talk and see how I can help.
She's very welcome.
That's
because
very
there's a-
nice.
I'm sorry, Rose.
Very nice.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
the
I
way it
think-
is.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, also getting, of course, that's part of having, a small community or a community of artists, like you start knowing people and, okay, how do I do this or how do I do that? And then we'll share, the information. But for someone that wants to learn, like getting to it's also like knocking, like your wife was saying, knocking the doors and getting into different things. And not because, we're here not just, by lucky, in this case, for example, we've been here invited by Pamela and Juana, on this wonderful program that they put together all the artists, and those are things, like the registry that we have right now in Houston, with
Dr. Pamela
Dr.
Quiroz.
Pamela Quiroz, yes, at the Center of the Mexican
An American and Latino study,
and
Latino studies.
right.
That is wonderful
Right.
program. That is wonderful program.
Yes, the CMALS, it's
Yes.
very good program. So getting into that, register, do it, put your name there and get people to know your art. Participate in any, over the internet. There are hundreds of things to apply, exhibitions, I don't know, competitions, all kind of things. So
Or-
if
or
you
you-
apply to that,
Yes.
Or you
Then-
yourself can create something at the gathering. You don't have to be invited to invite others to have your own little salons in your house and have conversations, or to say we're going to work on a project. I'm sure that you said, you know what, I think that this committee makes what I see. Let's see how we're going to get a bunch of people. We're going to raise some money. We're going to paint a mural. We're going to do a sculpture. It's part of that's how part of a social justice movement. People gathered in the community around issues that they wanted people to read on the walls as part of their mural. Black Lives Matter, you started to see a bunch of murals by young people all
Yes.
over the city,
Yes.
all over the country, that were really messages, and they were beautifully done and very powerful. And of course, what they were expressing, what is happening in our society. I'm so sorry, but we are really running at the close of our session, and I want to say thank you to our wonderful speakers.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I also want to thank Dr. Pamela Quiroz for allowing us to be able to present to you, to Marisela Martinez and to Carlos, to her wonderful team. And again, I want to thank you. And there is one more thing that I want you to remember. Nothing makes an artist the best way to say thank you to an artist is to buy their artwork. And to either start your collection or add them to your collection.
First thing for an artist or an artist to be is define the goal, what they are looking for, what they want to get. Because depending of where they are expecting
What is
of
the
their
focus?
career will be a different path.
That's what I
So
wanted to
if you
say.
want to show in an art gallery, what you will do, you need to go and visit the art galleries and go to the openings And if they have art discussion, you need to be there. Because eventually, you will have the conversation with the gallery owner, and then, you're an artist, okay, and then that will be your moment to present your work, and keep working. And something important, the most important thing is work, work, and work.
Yes.
Not exposure.
Yes.
So you are ready,
Yes.
you are ready when the opportunity comes.
And I'm Lorena's yes here.
Yes. I have your
I am
emails.
always
I have
ready.
your email, all your emails.
Bravo,
Let's get
everybody.
together.
Thank you for the wonderful way.